All right, hello everyone. This is your guy Sam Hutchins from the It's a Wrap with Reggie and Sam podcast, and I have here with me today a special guest. I'm gonna let her introduce herself. If you could, Miss, could you go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name's Debbie Bradley. I'm from the Genesis Center in Winder.
Miss Bradley is here. Is going to give us some much needed information. There's been some things going on in our community that really do need addressing. We cannot continue to go on pretending like nothing's wrong, and we can't let this turn into a norm, so to speak. And here I'm broadcasting live from the Black Excellence Conference here in Winder at the Wembley Center. A lot of great things are going on out here. They got a lot of free stuff, a lot of food, vendors, and information. Voter registration is going on, of course, that's important too. But Ms. Debbie, again, thank you so much for being a part of the It's a Wrap with Reggie and Sam podcast. Could you just go ahead and tell us a little bit about what it is that you want to do on a day-to-day basis before we dive into the subject is going to be about the fentanyl. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so what I do on the day-to-day, at the Genesis Center, what we do is we take people in active addiction and work with them to get them to where they are not using illicit drugs. We do use medications for that. So far, we've been in Winder for 4.5 years and treated over 1,500 people.
That's just here in Winder?
That's here in Winder. So, and we are just touching the surface of who is getting treatment. And let me just say this, out of the people that we treat, we probably only hit 3% of who's using drugs.
So you're telling me out of the 1,500 people that's only like 3% of the population that probably has that problem?
That is correct.
I cannot fathom how crazy crazy is probably the wrong word that I should use. I probably be using something else, but for lack of a better word, that's just so. And because of the problem, and I guess, and be a little transparent here, I just lost some people, and it's a little bit emotional for me because the conversation that I had with them. You know, as you and I, before we went on air here, what I was telling you was that, you know, one of the last conversations that I had with him was like, it's not too late, but it's getting late, is what I used to say. And then
right.
When I got that news yesterday, I got punched in the gut, and first thing, all I could think of was that now it's too late.
Right.
But then I got to say that, what can we learn from this?
Well, and that's just it. It's education, education, education. And unfortunately, people don't educate. They like to turn their heads away from it.
Yeah.
They like to pretend it doesn't happen. It happened in my own family. I have 2 children that one is in recovery and one is not. So it is personal for me as well.
Yeah.
I can tell you that I get scared every day for my son.
Wow. How old is your son, if you don't mind?
43.
This person was 40-something last night when I got that news.
Yeah, and fentanyl is just such a different, and I'm not going to say, I don't call it a drug, I call it poison, because it's not a drug. It's not the fentanyl that they use in the hospital. Yeah. It's synthetic, and unfortunately, now it's laced with xylazine. Again, most everybody that we test that tests positive for fentanyl tests positive for xylazine, and xylazine can't be reversed with Narcan. And that
is something I want. If you could go into it a little bit more in depth and why that is, because a lot of people. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was talking about even police now make part of their wear every day gun, badge, and a Narcan.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, that's unfortunate too, because with the officers, they get 1 Narcan set a day. So if they use all of them up, they're calling around, finding the next officer that's closest to the scene that has 1 left. And a lot of times they don't have any left. They've already used it. It takes more to bring somebody back than it used to. So Narcan used to come in a 2 milligram, and you could use 1 of them and it would bring somebody back. Yeah. Now they sell them in 4 milligram, 8 milligram. It just takes more and more and more. And if it's laced with the xylazine, which again, most of it is these days, xylazine was made for veterinary use. for
that's what I thought.
for large animals.
And I'm not real versed in it, not as well versed in it, certainly not as much as you. But what I heard, it's like an animal tranquilizer.
That's exactly what it is for large animal.
Like horses and
big
elephants.
game, elephants, large animals. So it is a very, very heavy synthetic benzo, which means it gives you respiratory depression. So Narcan, what it does is when somebody overdoses with fentanyl, which is an opioid, it pushes that off of your opioid receptors and you can wake back up. Yeah. But with the xylazine that's involved, Narcan doesn't work because it doesn't help the respiratory depression. And that's why we're losing so many. I mean, that's why, because even if somebody can get to them, and trust me, we pass out Narcan continually every single day, but even if somebody could get to them right away, and it's got a lot of xylazine in it.
So the Narcan doesn't even work on this.
It's not going to bring them back. It's not. I mean, and I guarantee you that, like with your friend, I guarantee you they tried. I'm sure they tried. I'm sure they tried using it, and it didn't work.
I mean, I'm gonna ask you a question, and you probably don't have the answer either, because I've certainly. How did it get to this? How did we get here? That's my thing. How did we get here?
I would say greedy drug dealers. It's cheap. It can get here easily. Xylazine actually is something that's not regulated, so it's easier to get in the country. It's much easier to get in. You can literally order it. So same with fentanyl. I mean, how we got into the condition that we're in now with so many people that we're losing, yeah. I don't know. I mean, heroin is no more. The thing is fentanyl is so much stronger and so much more addictive. It's hard. It's hard for people to get well. It's hard for them to get off of it because they have to use more and more and more because their tolerance just builds and builds and builds. And they end up using every hour and a half versus before, if somebody was using heroin, it was something completely different. It was completely different than this. This is poison.
There's no other way to put it.
It's
I
poison.
agree with you. I agree with you. And before they, and I'm just gonna say this, and maybe I'm saying it out of ignorance, maybe I'm saying it out of emotion, but it seems like the politicians are just politicizing it, using it as something to say, "Hey, look at us, we can fix this." But they say that they have an answer, but I don't think they do.
I don't think.
But then they talk about how easy it is because they never say xylazine. They always say fentanyl is coming into the country.
Right.
What is that? What do you mean fentanyl is coming into the country? If you know it's coming into the country, or is it coming in as fentanyl, or is it coming in as something else and becoming fentanyl once it gets here?
It's definitely coming in as fentanyl, and our postal system has not been revamped in decades, yeah. So it just comes. And people can just order it,
without a prescription.
Without a prescription. I mean, again, we're dealing with something that's not prescribed.
And you would think with the devastation that it's causing, that it would make it harder to get. I mean, I don't want to reference it, but something like gun control. Like people, when they hear gun control, the first thing they think about is they're trying to take away our guns. No, we're just saying don't just let anybody be able to get a gun.
Right.
And I think something like that should be toward this. Don't let it just be so easy and accessible for somebody. Make them have to go through something.
Right.
And to make sure that it's okay to sell it to them. Because both of them are taking lives. And most times it's from people who shouldn't have had a gun to start with.
Well, and how many lives is guns taking versus, fentanyl?
Yeah, exactly.
We lose somebody to a fentanyl overdose every 8 minutes. Every 8 minutes in the United States. And they're young, they're 12, they're 13, they're children because they took a pill from a friend and 90% of the pills out there are laced. So, I tell everyone, and education is just the key. Education is
and it's something that has to be constant too, wouldn't you agree? I mean, because
it needs to be constant, and it needs to not be thrown under the rug. I mean, what we do has always been stigmatized. Methadone treatment. Oh, well, you're just trading one drug for another. No, you're not. What we do is get somebody healthy, stable, they're not high, they are able to keep a job, they're able to get their life back.
To become a productive citizen of society.
They are productive. Just because they're using medication to do that doesn't mean that that's wrong. I take medication for blood pressure. That's not wrong.
Yeah, some people take it for diabetes.
Exactly.
That's not wrong.
What's the difference? I mean,
there is none. I mean, you can rationalize any way you want to, but it's sort of like when you talk about the mental health issues, and like I tell people, you know, if there's some pill that you can take that keeps you a productive member of society, it keeps you from wanting to hurt yourself, it keeps you from wanting to do any damage, please, by all means, take that pill.
By all
means. Or if it takes you talking to somebody, if you have to go through therapy, if you have to go to a therapist, by all means, sit down and have a talk with somebody.
I mean, don't stigmatize something that saves lives.
We're going here on the live chat, and Ms. Hinton, thank you so much. She is absolutely right. I agree with you. It says it is time. She says it is time to hold our elected officials accountable for what is going on in our communities. Absolutely.
Amen.
And don't let them try to politicize this thing. My friend John Mocha, thank you so much for watching. Hey, Tawana, how you doing, lady? Congratulations on your daughter's graduation. So proud of her. Jump in on this conversation if you want to. You want to come on camera, I can absolutely do that. But the conversation here is about fentanyl overdose. And we got a lady here. Again, she is doing this tremendous work. And I know it's got to be an uphill battle for you because you don't really get the support that you need, do you?
We don't get the support we need. I usually foot the bill for somebody who can't afford treatment because we don't have federal funding, which we should. Why don't
we have federal funding for this? Because this is a national crisis.
I don't know. That's a great question, and you know, there's
and maybe it's something that we don't know. Maybe it's something that we're missing. Mm-hmm. Because you cannot tell me if we. And again, the Ukraine war, I understand that, trust me. I understand the political side of it. But my mom used to have us say, you take care of home first. Mm-hmm. This, you can't tell me, we sent all, and again, we didn't send all that wasn't money. There was old stockpile warheads and all the stuff that we did do. We did send them money. So you can't tell me if you got money for Ukraine, you don't have money to try to save or put something in place or put some kind of infrastructure in place so we can tackle this fentanyl. And I'm trying not to get emotional here because I think about the young people that have gone on and they cross paths with me. Some of my coaches when they were basketball, some of them through whatever means I know them personally. And I've watched them grow up and I watched them grow through what they were going through. So it's become personal for me. And I've lost tears over it here recently because this last one, it punched me in my stomach. Because before we went on air, like I said, I was having a conversation with him 6-7 months ago when I seen him, because I didn't see him as much as I used to because he had gotten in that situation with. But it is something that can be. Our federal government, our representatives. I'm gonna call them out. Terry England, guys, come on.
Let's do something.
Don't wait. I know you know it, so don't wait for something for a crisis so you can do a photo op and come and say, yeah, I put my arms around these people because they had a child that died from fentanyl. We don't need a photo op now.
Yeah.
We need action. We need boots on the ground. You guys, you should have everything you need.
We should have everything we need. And I will say, Terry England actually, when I was going to open the clinic, helped me every which way he could to get the clinic open. There was so much incredible red tape to open a clinic. Yeah. I mean, and it is difficult because of what we do. It is not easy. It is difficult, but it shouldn't be as hard as it is when we are trying to save lives. We are in a different climate than we were a year ago. It's not the same. And what we do should not be stigmatized. It should not be. It shouldn't be thrown under the rug. I have, for instance, right now, I have a couple that is going through a pretty bad defects case that are really trying to get their life back on track. Yeah. And the defects worker is like, well, why are you giving them medication? They haven't stopped using. Because it's probably the only thing saving their lives.
And that's
you need education. You know,
that's what I'm talking about. There's even a disconnect at the defect.
There is. It's disconnect all over. And it's education. It just, all I can do is educate as much as I possibly can. And it is not. It's not a race thing anymore. It is not.
Please say that. Say that because because you were giving me some statistics. Before we went on air. You would share them with my audience who's out here watching now.
So in 2023, and we don't have statistics. They always run about a year behind. The overdose deaths increased for people who are white in the 1,213%. Black, 775% from the year prior. Hispanic, it was in the 1,100% range. So it has crossed barriers. It is not a race thing. It is poison. It is huge. It's a war on our ground. And we're not winning.
And they're not giving us what we need to win.
No.
I mean, it's one thing to give us something, they're not even giving up enough to fight.
No.
Because I don't know, are they waiting for a number to be reached? Or
I don't know, because we've crossed every number that we possibly can. I mean, losing somebody one every 8 minutes. I mean, these are our children. These are husbands, wives, uncles, aunts, nieces. I mean, we're losing a generation. We're losing children. We've never lost children. I mean, I've worked in this field for decades.
Wow.
I've never watched children die. 12-year-olds because they took a pill from somebody, and that pill was fentanyl laced.
Yes.
They had no tolerance. They had no nothing. They had no chance to survive.
Wow. And Miss Tawana Max, again, I want to thank you so much. She wants to know, again, what's the name of the clinic that you work at that we're referring to?
The Genesis Center. We're right behind Regions Bank.
Did you get that? It's called the Genesis Center. I'll put some more in the comments after this live, and if you don't mind, I'm going to upload this to my YouTube channel too, and put that in the description. So try to garner you some more kind of stuff. I mean, we can't rely on private funding because people just don't give like that.
No,
let's just be honest. They don't.
They don't.
They don't give like that. But our government has to step up and say something. We got to hold. As Ms. Hinton said earlier, our elected officials, it's got to be something that's on the forefront of what it is that they quote unquote do for the community.
Right, I agree.
And
you know, there are some countries that what we do is paid for by the government.
I was just about to say that it's free.
It should be. It should be.
Yeah, that's a one way to cut down the cost. Just make it where it's free.
Make it where it's free.
The first somebody said, well, the stuff that's like that is it's gonna incur cost. No, it's not. Stop it. Stop it. Because it's about what's important. Yeah. What's important is getting this thing stopped, getting it controlled, keeping it away from the kids. Because again, as we were having the conversation before we went on air here, somebody will die from this tomorrow. And like you said, in every 8 minutes, somebody just died while we've been on air for like, what, 20 minutes? That means two people have died from it.
Yeah.
Let that sink in.
That's more than car wrecks, heart attacks, just regular accidents combined.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
And people won't talk about it. They won't talk about it. And what we do is wrong. But yet I see people get well every day. I see them get well.
And you have to, and that's another thing. The naysayers.
Yeah, the naysayers.
The naysayers are saying it's not working.
Why would you do that? Why would you put somebody on medication? It's medication. It works. It works. It's proven.
It gets back to what you said. We're trying to save lives here.
That's what we're doing.
What does that? There's an old saying, and I used to, and literature was one of my things. I forget who said this. What price? Salvation.
Yeah, exactly.
At what price?
Exactly.
Salvation.
Exactly. You can't tell me that some of the people that we have treated, that I've watched go on and become really great, productive citizens.
And
tell me it's wrong.
You can't tell me that's wrong. And then you got some people. They didn't start out hooked on drugs. They came from an event that caused them to turn to drugs.
A car accident. And then the pain management cut them off, and they're addicted. So what do? They go out there and they get something that's illegal because they're suffering. they're in withdrawal symptoms. They're sick. So the people that are using fentanyl, same thing. They're not using because they want to. They're using because
it's
they're
taking
sick.
over their lives. It's not a choice that they have anymore.
No, they don't have the choice. They're sick. And people say, well, why can't you just stop? You can't just stop.
Because if they could, they would.
Exactly.
Why don't you just say, because if you could, you would.
You know, why don't I just stop having some candy?
Yeah.
I mean, that's me. I can't stop. That's who I am. It's ingrained in me.
I mean, so like a child eating candy.
Exactly.
As long as they see candy and you let them, they'll keep eating it. They're not going to stop.
Exactly. But your brain...
Not because they want to. It's just
the way it is.
It's the way it is.
You know, but with opioid addiction, you know, with fentanyl addiction, which is worse, is the fact that it changes your brain chemistry. So
see, that's another thing. Get into that. What is it when you say change the brain chemistry? What does that mean? Your ability to do
my ability and your ability to produce the things that make us want to get up in the morning, endorphins, dopamine, the things that make us feel happy, the things that make us feel normal. People that use opioids can't produce that. They cannot produce it on their own. They no longer can. Their brain cannot produce it. It has learned to produce it only from the drugs.
Wow.
So when somebody has been using like that, they literally cannot get up out of the bed without having a hit or having, you know,
that's like coffee to them. That's their coffee.
Same kind of situation.
So people can't get fun, and they got it in their head that they can't function without coffee. I love the smell of coffee, but I don't like coffee.
Right.
But you said dopamine.
Yeah, dopamine, endorphins, serotonin. I mean, all the things that make people just function normally on the daily.
Yeah, the things that make you happy, because not to get off track here, but I have an autistic son, Xavier, and he has a seizure condition that's triggered by the dopamine. If he sees something because most of the time when he sees me for the first time, like that day, he's just so happy, and it triggers a seizure. It triggers it, and that's what some of the medication that he takes is supposed to try to kind of curb that, and it does for the most part. But sometimes he's just so happy,
right?
You know, and that causes that. So that part I understood about, but I can imagine him not being able to do that, not being able him to be able to produce that. What kind of person?
You can. I mean, they can't produce it. So with the medications that we use, it actually kind of reverses things. It takes a couple years, honestly, to get your brain to where it's actually producing things on their own again. So it takes time. It's not an overnight fix, and I wish it was. Yeah. And I will tell you that everything that we do is so incredibly regulated. Yeah. The government has made some changes to the better. For the first time in 20 years, they have made changes, meaning we can now, as a clinic, versus what the government told us we had to do, we can decide whether somebody can have take-home medication. Before, you had to be
government regulated. If
everything's regulated that we do. So before, we could not, even if we knew somebody had a job and they could only come in on Saturdays, they'd still have to come every day. Now, finally this year, they have made some changes. We can actually decide as a clinic because we're treating that person. That's huge. That's huge because I have people that really need to go to work. I mean, I open at 5:30 in the morning, and I usually have a line around the building at 5:30 in the morning.
In Winder, at the Genesis Clinic.
At the Genesis Center, because those people are coming in before they go to work to get their medication so they can go to work and be productive.
But for whatever reason, people are looking at it like you're handing out drugs.
Yeah, I'm just a dealer.
You're just a glorified drug dealer.
I'm just a glorified dealer with a license. That's what I am.
That is crazy.
And
again, it goes back to what you said. That's where education comes in. Because if you don't know, and because sometimes you see something face value and think it is what it is, but a lot of times it's more to it than meets the eye, they like to say.
Again, everything that we do is so incredibly regulated. It's regulated by the DEA. It's regulated by the pharmacy.
But I don't understand, how is it that you can regulate the help, but you can't regulate the problem?
Exactly.
I don't get that. That makes absolutely no sense to me. How is it that you're going to regulate the help, but you're not going to regulate the help?
Not regulating the problem.
But you're not going to regulate the problem. But you're going to regulate the people who are trying to help, but you're not going to regulate the problem. Yeah. Because if you regulated the problem, then you wouldn't need as many people. The help wouldn't need as much help.
That's right. And trust me, I would love to see not 6, 7 people on a day that we bring somebody in for treatment.
Yeah.
So new patients, they have to see a physician. We have to do blood work. We have to do a full physical. We do HIV testing. We do Hep C testing. Those are things that some things are required by the state as we bring them in. Thursday, I had 6 people come in on one day. We're only open from 5:30 to 12. I mean, I had to call a second doctor in because there was no way I wasn't treating all people. I mean, it didn't matter who they were.
And thank God for who you are and the empathy in your heart for doing that. Going back to the comment, they said, Tawana said, this is a great discussion. This needs to go broader and deeper in our communities, countries, and states. Amen, lady. I agree 100%. Some of our churches need to have like seminars or something like that so we can get this thing out. And Miss Vanessa A10, you had a great comment I see here. You said, no one wakes up being addicted. It is a process and it is usually the result of a traumatic experience. Regardless of the addiction, a person wants more each time until it eventually takes their life. In other words, the need or usage is increasing, which is echoes pretty much what you just said, Ms. Debbie.
Very true.
It's very true. And like I was saying, and that's one of the things, and that's why I wish more people would understand what it is that Tammy Kinney is trying to do here with this Black Excellence Conference. Because a lot of people look at it and they'll see Black excellence. Oh, they just celebrate Black people and what they're doing. That is not true. I've seen all races out here. I think I might even seen an Arab. Just joking. But there are all types of races. It's not about being Black. You can celebrate being Black without being anti-white. People, please understand that. What Tammy is trying to do here is gather people who have information for this community that will uplift this community, that will inspire this community to go and be and do better. And I wish we could do more about getting behind something like this. I mean, you don't want to come to this, have your own. And have Miss Debbie come because trust me, and I'm making this a point. My YouTube channel is starting to grow now. Like I said, I just checked. I got right at 3,000 subscribers. So 3,000 people are going to see this once I upload it to my YouTube channel. But I was hoping that my co-host would come on so he could put a little input on it too. Reggie, if you're listening, or somebody can get Reggie to come on so I can bring him on camera as well. To have seminars for this, so you can be doing this ongoing. You being open from 5 to 12. That's what, 6.5 hours, 7 hours?
7 hours, and I get up at 2:30 in the morning.
Wow.
I mean, I make sure those doors are open so those people can go to work.
And of course, and I don't want to say devil's advocate, but somebody's probably saying, well, what qualifies her? Why is she so qualified to be an expert? Tell people a little bit what it is that you went through and how you got to where you are with the Jensen Center.
I have a master's degree. I have probably 10 letters behind my name. So there's been a lot of education, but I can tell you that all of those don't matter. Yeah. What matters is the fact that I've walked in the shoes.
Amen.
I have had children with addiction problems.
Wow.
I have had a mother that I lost. So walking in those shoes means a whole lot more than any education that I ever got. I grew up in the east side of Cleveland, Ohio.
Wow.
So that tells you where I grew up.
Yeah.
Okay. So I never seen color. I never have. I never will. I don't understand that. I just don't because...
You know why you don't understand it? I mean, that's why I tell you. You know why you don't understand racism? Because it makes no sense.
Yeah.
That's why.
I don't get it.
It makes no sense. Racism doesn't make any sense. That's why you can't understand it.
Yeah, I never have been able to understand it. I never will.
You understand what it is, but you don't understand racism. What is that?
I've never understood it.
Yeah, you're not going to understand something that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. That's why you don't understand.
And I treat each person as a person because that's what they are.
And like I said, I met you last year, and I can tell that you're a person that really cares from the heart. And that's the difference. Like I tell people, there's a difference between sympathy and empathy. The empathy, you're in there. You understand it because it's been, you lived that.
I've lived it.
You've lived it. You've not watched it on TV or read a book or something. You've lived it.
I got my education the hard way. I got my education the hard way.
As Quincy Jones used to say, you graduated from the college of the streets.
I did.
That's what old Quincy used to say back in the day. Graduated from the college of the streets, got a PhD in how to make ends meet. But again, even if you didn't have any of those degrees or whatever, Miss Debbie, I could tell that this is near and dear to your heart. And for us to get this thing to where we can beat it, it's going to take more people like you, because it's a thankless job, because you probably don't get nearly enough credit for what it is that you do, because the sacrifice of getting up at 2:30 in the morning in itself, you see what I'm saying? It can't be. I get up at 3 o'clock every morning myself, so trust me, and I'm working 11 hours a day. So I completely understand what it is you come from, but you got to love what you do, because you're not doing it for the pay.
I'm not doing it for the money. That's not what it's about. Yes, it takes a lot of money to do what we do. It does, but I'm probably the cheapest clinic there is around.
Say frugal.
Frugal. I don't mean it like that. I mean, as far as like what it costs to come into treatment.
Yeah, you try to keep it as effective.
I don't charge an intake fee, which other clinics do. I charge $12 per dose, which is daily, which is minimal. If you knew what medication and bottles and nurses and doctors, I mean, we have a nurse, a doctor, 2 nurses, a doctor, a nurse practitioner. I mean, our staff is educated and there. So the cost of that is high. It is very high. So it is not cheap what we do by any means.
So where does your funding come from?
It comes from the patients.
Really?
And a lot of times, unfortunately, it comes from the patients' mothers or family. I have an 80-year-old woman that walks in there and pays for her daughter, which to me
80 years old.
Which is sad. It's sad.
80 years old, she's walking in that door.
She's walking in that door and paying for her every week. And I know that she's on a fixed income. I know she is.
So just doing what they can to make it work.
Exactly. Just doing what she can.
Because that person means that much to them. At 80 years old, it's still...
Yeah, still trying, still fighting.
Not giving up on them.
And that's huge. You give up, you walk away from them. A lot of people do that. You can't do that. When you walk away, they give up. So you don't walk away.
Wow.
You don't walk away. I mean, you fight and you fight and you fight.
And you fight some more.
Sometimes we fight for them until they can. We fight for them while they can't.
You fight for them till they can.
Till they can.
That's it. So if somebody wanted to say support, what could they do? When I say support, I mean donations, or what is it that you need, like something they could donate to you guys on a monthly basis or something like that? Do you have anything like that set up?
Food, toothbrushes, toothpaste, anything. I mean, just anything, honestly.
Anything like that, like body wash or all of that.
Anything like that is acceptable, and our patients love it. Because a lot of them, they don't have much, because they're coming from addiction and just trying to get their life back on track. I mean, I have a couple right now that live in a shed that has a 1 power cord going to it, and that is it. But they're seeking treatment, and they are doing everything they can. And we are doing what we can.
So you say stuff like toothbrushes, toothpaste, soap, or
anything like that that's essential. I mean, it's expensive out there right now.
It is.
And so, sometimes, and that's the other part too, sometimes I'll get a patient that they can't come every single day. It's crucial that they come daily. It's crucial for them to get their medication on the daily. That is critical, because if they miss a day, they miss that medication, and then they go back and they use, and we can't get them stable.
I just want to know what would it take to lose this stigma that they have, that you just a glorified drug dealer, that you just giving them drugs, and so people could look at it as different. see it for what it is, not for what they think it is. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Education, and
Education.
we have a lot of material that my daughter has created. Is 7 years sober.
Yeah.
Which is incredible, and the front of it says breaking the stigma, and just breaking the stigma to me is one recovery at a time. One recovery at a time, because you can't deny the recovery. You can't deny the statistics. You can't deny what we do is
effective.
right.
It's
working. Effective and it
and
works.
It's right.
And it's one of the only things that works with fentanyl. It's the only thing. The other thing with methadone, and we do several different things. We don't just do methadone, but with methadone, they have found out recently that it actually does have, and we've known that it has a blocker stage, but people that have methadone on board that are still using fentanyl have a lesser chance of overdosing.
Now, the blocker stage, explain that to me.
So what it does is it binds to the opiate receptors so hard that it binds to where if somebody tries to use a drug,
it won't work.
It don't work. It doesn't give them any high or euphoria or the things that they're seeking, because what we have is just keeping them stable and sober. So it does have a blocking stage, which is amazing. Okay. I mean, it's an amazing medication. It really is, especially for fentanyl, because it just is the only thing that they've found that works.
Wow. And like I said, I was just blown away when you were giving your speech out there at the conference, and you said that Narcan doesn't work. That blew my mind, because again, the conversation that my friend, my partner, shout out to Reggie, he and I were having this morning. He was saying that had become part of the police uniform now.
Mm-hmm. And it is
gun, badge, Narcan,
yeah. and Narcan, and they say that.
And I didn't, and he I don't know if he knew it. I didn't know it didn't work on fentanyl.
Well, it works on fentanyl. It just doesn't work
on the overdose.
It doesn't work on the fentanyl that's got the xylazine in it.
With the xylazine. Okay.
With the xylazine, it just does not work.
So how much? So what percentage would you think of it that has xylazine in it now?
100%.
100%.
100% of the overdoses that from the last statistic that we have that had fentanyl had xylazine. Wow. 100%. And so 100%. At the clinic, the first thing we do when we get somebody in is a lot of paperwork, a lot of red tape. We do a drug test. If we test them and we test them and they pop for fentanyl. Yeah. And normally they light up the screen. I mean, they light it up because there's so many drugs cut in it. Then we test them for the xylazine, and I would say 90% of the time, it comes up xylazine as well. And literally, I think xylazine test strips only came available 6-8 months ago. Really? And the second they came on the market, we had them.
Are they as expensive as the diabetes strips?
They're expensive, but I have to know what I'm treating.
Yeah, this is true.
I have to know what I'm treating. It's not regulated that I have to test that, but I'm testing it. I need to know. Yeah. I need to know what you have on board.
But that's only because you got to know where to start.
That's exactly right.
You got to know where to start, and so that makes it very necessary. So, the Genesis Clinic. Why the name Genesis?
The beginning.
I thought that, but I wanted to hear you say that.
The beginning.
That is a great name for it, and I would love to hear more about it. Like I said, my partner and I are going to get together, and we're going to have you back on, and we're going to try to drum up some more places for you to educate.
I would love that.
Because this is go back to what Mr. Water Maxey was saying. This conversation needs to be had on a broader scale than where I am. Everybody needs to know about it. I mean, we got all these churches, we got all these organizations, we got all these events that come through here. Schools. But what's the schools' take on something like this? When they don't.
They like to throw it under the rug as well.
Wow. And the thing of it is, it's affecting school-age children.
It's affecting
12, 13 years old.
I honestly think it should be part of your health class at this point.
Yeah.
I think it should. I think that every child should know, because they don't know.
If you're sitting there and you're talking about sex education, you're talking about AIDS, you're talking about STDs.
You need to be talking about
why you're not talking about fentanyl? I'm just saying, come on now. You should be talking about fentanyl.
The children need to know.
And they need to know sooner, because education Education is that much more. Are we getting ready to wrap up here?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, listen. Sammy Hale is watching. Sammy, if you didn't, you got to go back to another time and watch this on the YouTube broadcast. But my guest here today has been Miss Debbie Bradley from the Genesis Clinic here in Winder. And the topic was about fentanyl and its use and its devastation that it continues to wreak havoc in our communities. And we're talking about ways and trying to bring out points that need to be talked about. We're going to have her back on. And thank you so much for being part of the It's a Wrap with Reggie and Sam podcast. Thank you for taking the time to come out. Miss Debbie, is something you want to say before we signed off right now?
Just thank you very much for taking the time, because education is key.
It absolutely is. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sammy, for coming in. Came in late, but like I said, watch the rebroadcast and go to like, share, and subscribe on our YouTube channel. We're up to almost a little bit over 3,000 subscribers now. So thank you guys, everybody that's doing that. Again, so I want to say thank you, Miss Hinton. Thank you so much for being part of the broadcast. And as we like to say at the end of every broadcast, it's a wrap.